Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today are Joel Elston and Sam Page.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And speaking for myself, I'm happy that Sam's back because we've been missing him for the last couple of weeks. So energy back. That's a good thing. Hooray.
Indeed. I'm glad to be back here. Yes, for sure.
We're glad to have you. And we actually have another interesting topic lined up for today. This is something that came out of Joel sharing a bit of his reading list with me. I thought, you know what, that actually makes a good topic because the item that he shared with me is a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits, which Joel, I believe you said was one of your favorite books on the topic. And it made me think about how there are really two schools of thought regarding how to deal with the challenges involved, particularly the personal, mental, emotional challenges involved in trying to manifest things when you're feeling stressed for whatever reason. It could be just because you have long-standing tapes that play in your head. It could be just because you have things going on in your current life. There's a lot of possible reasons for it. But the bottom line is we have these resistances, and they prevent us from often manifesting the things that we're looking for. And so different people have proposed different ideas. Some people say, well, go big, dream big, go for the biggest stuff you can, and let whatever shows up within that realm show up. But if you dream big, that way you give yourself the chance to get the big things. Other people say, well, that's fine and dandy, but if you really want to get regular results, do little steps, go for the little things, which I presume is what the whole idea of Atomic Habits is all about. I'm not quite sure, but that's my guess. So I think that's kind of laying the landscape here in terms of what we're going to be talking about. But Joel, you know the book better than I do. Tell us more about what Atomic Habits is all about and why do you like it so much?
Well, and I also want to say the two are not mutually exclusive, by the way. The idea of you can have a big dream, big ideas, but the pathway of getting there. And Atomic Habits really is not a law of attraction book per se. I'm the one that sort of introduced that concept for my clients. It's a good way to bring things about. Atomic Habits are about making incremental changes. The idea that if you improve 1% every day, you're going to improve 365% or 1% a week, 50%. And that's a really good method to get people to that next step. I almost equate it to Abraham Hicks's emotional guidance scale. When you're here, you just, you go from depression to anger. Everybody, well, why would you want to do that? Well, it's a little better, but we want to keep going, but it's a little better. And the idea of walking small, getting small goals. A lot of the people I'm working with have really experienced a lot of failure, a lot of incomplete. They haven't been able to really get things going. So the idea, if somebody sits down, I've been sitting in my house and haven't left for 3 weeks. And, my goal is to have $1 million. That sounds wonderful, but they don't believe that that's going to happen. They just, deep down that's why so many people swing big. I'm a big picture guy. As you know, I just let it flow. But I didn't start out that way. I had to have incremental gains for me to believe that would happen. And so allowing yourself to approach small goals, improve slowly, make more money slowly or increase all that. Now you start to believe. Then the more you believe, you can increase that and you can attract what you want. But the idea that you have never had any money your entire life, your family's always struggled. I'm not saying it's impossible to attract a massive amount of money. It's just unlikely because you have no point of reference to be able to feel that way. And so working your way up that pattern of improvement, victory, I'm doing better, you start to believe. So incremental habits toward the big goal is the ultimate way to get it. The most people that I know that have these wild, they come into the law of attraction and they say, I'm going to do all this, I'm going to do it. I've really never seen anybody do that personally. I've seen thousands of people make incremental gains. I've used this analogy before, but a gentleman that was working at Comcast here locally, and he came to me because he said, I've just been making like 60 grand a year for the last 3 years, and I'm bored at my job. And I said, how much do you want to make? And he goes, I don't know, 130, 140. And I said, okay. I said, well, what does the person in the highest paid position that you do? He was a salesman, he supervised a team of salesmen. He said, well, the head guy in the company is always the head guy in the company. He makes about 140 grand a year. It's okay. So we know it can be done. So there's a pattern of doing it. I said, but I don't see you going from 60 to 140 because you don't believe you can. But if we added 2 or 3 appointments a week, you could maybe bump it up from, the average of what you would make, making 60 to maybe make it 70. And we'll add this. He did exactly that. We set a goal to make 70 that year. He was on pace to make 70 within a few weeks. We then moved it up to 80. He was on a pace a few weeks to do that. And actually, by the end of the year, he did make that 130. But he did it. He had to do it incrementally for him to accept the concept. And so that's why I like little habits, little victories. Sometimes the people that have been stuck in their home, haven't left, and they're hoarders, and they have all the stuff they have to do. I don't start by cleaning the whole house. I literally take a piece of rope off one area, and I said, let's clean this area. And once that area is cleaned, then I move the rope, and now all of a sudden you get the whole house clean, but you have to do it incrementally. So that's why I'm a big fan of the Atomic Habits method, to convince the brain to buy into the concept that this is a doable way. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. It makes a lot of sense. It makes sense to Sam too, I can tell, because his head always starts bobbing up and down whenever he starts reacting well to something. It was just all over the place, bobbing up and down. So,
yeah, for me, a lot of it. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
A lot of it just resonates with my understanding of LOA in general, because you think of like The Secret, and they give kind of, don't mean this in a bad way, like more surface level or kind of introduction of LOA, and then you think, oh, you think about this and it'll come, boom. But it's more like, it's such a big swing, and it's like the more you believe and the more you raise your vibration, like you kind of start incrementally, and then as you kind of get there and you keep going and going, then maybe you can go for the bigger swings and dream bigger.
That's so on point. I use this analogy constantly. I've probably used it on the show over the years 20 times, but the Sir Roger Bannister in the mid-60s did something nobody did in the history of the world before that. He broke the 4-minute mile. It was deemed impossible. People had tried it. There was a lot of people that ran 4 minutes, but nobody could get under 4 minutes. It literally was considered the impossible record to break. So when he broke it, within a month or two after him breaking it, something like 12 people broke that. And now it's down to like 3 minutes and 51. I mean, it's really low. And all that changed was people's belief that it could be broken, and then it was easily broken. High school kids almost run that now. So it used to be the impossible record. That's just pretty standard now. So that concept, all that changed was a belief. The human body didn't change that much. The equipment back then, it was all equal. Nowadays, equipment makes a big difference, but back then they broke it after he broke it because they believed it could be done. So the same with me. When I struggled for years with a gambling addiction, I had no money. I had $250,000 in credit card debt. I had $20,000 of restitution to the state of Florida, and it was an impossible thing to get through that. I could never understand that. And then eventually, I got in recovery, and I got the credit card debt. I negotiated it down, and I started to believe a little bit, and then I got everything paid off. But yet I was always seeming to have just enough money. It was just never enough. It was just enough, but it was not enough to do more. But I had a belief of just that was sort of a limit that I could get to. And when I started changing that, my perspective, and then 1 month I ended up with a couple extra $100, and then you get to a point. Money was my biggest struggle for so many years, and I'm really grateful to say that money's not even on my radar anymore. It's just it's just not a thing that I even think about. It's something I'm grateful for what I have, but I don't have to spend any energy. It's on autopilot right now. So that's a great way to be. But I had to believe in that incremental process, and I'm talking how my mind works. And a lot of the people I work with sort of are that way. I have never been, I am the ultimate Abraham Hicks fan, as you know, but the one area that I've never been on board with, sit on the couch and somebody's bringing you a couple $1 million if you want it hard enough. I've never seen that happen personally, really. But I've seen a lot of people go out, take action, incrementally grow, do things a little bit and just like Sam's saying, each time you increase, you have a range of frequency that you're going with. And you can't just go from, let's call it a zero, 1 or 2 vibration, and then go to the level 10 vibration automatically. You almost have to work your way up. So as you increase that vibration, you become better at increasing your vibration. Then it becomes easier. So Sam's point was dead on. You, it's almost like a muscle. If I want to, if Walt, you call me up and say, Joel, I want to bench press 300 pounds, and I said, okay, well, we'll do that. But we're not going to go to the gym and me hand you a bar with 300 pounds on it. You do it day one. But I mean, you may be able to, but I'm saying in theory.
Well, actually, no, I couldn't.
But if you wanted to really do that, we would start with wherever you're at, and we would incrementally add small amounts. And not only does your body adapt to it, your brain adapts to your ability to do it. Then you expect to do it, and when you do get there, you will do it.
Yeah. And just a minor point, but I don't believe Abraham Hicks actually said that you should be able to just manifest from your couch. There are people who have interpreted it that way, but my understanding of what they've said is they are trying to encourage people to get into a belief state before they take action. So they advocate, focus your attention there, focus on your belief state. They don't actually say, as well as I would like them to, they don't actually say, then take action. I wish they would say that part, but they don't really say that part.
Well, as you know, I have literally both books memorized. So, so actually, she does say at one point, action is not necessary, just the belief. She actually says that. Yeah. Then she actually says, again, action is more powerful as long. So she does get there,
right?
But it's kind contradictory to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's kind of indirect, so it makes it confusing. I want to run something by you just to see what your take is on it, because I've always been fascinated by this idea of the incremental approach, and many people have expressed it here on the program as well. And I think there's a lot of merit in it. But I've also found, just through my own experience, particularly with money, that the incremental approach is not evenly spaced steps. Often it is, like for instance, if I wanted to manifest $50 and then $100 and $200 and so forth, that often plays out that way. But somewhere along, whoops, we just lost Joel.
No, we're good. We're good. It was brief.
Yeah, very brief. But at some point, what happens with me anyway is, I've manifested, certain incremental levels, and then all of a sudden I have like a quantum leap, totally unexpected, totally unplanned, and it's just like, whoa, what happened there? I mean, I was in the hundreds, now I'm in the tens of thousands. What happened? I don't get it. And that's happened a couple times.
Well, and I believe the incremental leads to the quantum leap. I think, again, from what I've witnessed and experienced, I need the incremental, and then I have the quantum leap. I have never had the quantum leap without the incremental.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that fits my experience as well. It's just kind of interesting that it's like, I guess it's because we as humans kind of expect, well, the incremental makes sense, so it's got to be always in increments. And then when it's not, it's like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah, well, you expect it enough, and then as you once I started realizing how to use this, and I became very confident using it, then the incremental was never needed. I don't do incremental on this at all anymore, but it's a starting process particularly for people who have had trouble manifesting what they want. People that have struggled greatly, also people coming from a very low bottom. They tend to need the incremental to almost as training wheels to get them to the mindset. If you come from a upper middle class family and everything's fine, and you say, "How want to use the law of attraction?" You have a lot of evidence of success and wealth around you, so maybe you don't need the incremental as much. But when you come from really low bottoms and no sign of any wealth or anything along those lines, then incrementals allows you to believe. And I think that's what's missing a lot. With the simple, if you want it bad enough, you can have it, is true. But to really believe it goes beyond wanting. Really believe it with all your heart, and you have no idea what it feels like. You have to start a path of what that feels like.
I think it's also worth noting that incremental doesn't actually define a particular amount. It's just, it has the implication of being a relatively small change, but small is undefined. So one person's increment could be a tiny step, and another person's increment could be, for that same person, a huge step, just because they have different ideas of what the increments are.
Well, and again, everything's perspective based. I work with a lot of extremely wealthy families. I mean, billionaire families,
Mm.
and their version, my version of success and wealth and all that is, sort of what's around me, and I do very well and very proud of where I'm at, but they spend more than I make in a year on plane travel a year. It's just, they do. Again, I'm very happy for them. That's it's just, they have come to expect, hey, I want to go to Geneva, and the private plane's going to take me, and the trip's going to cost $90,000 each way. I'm good with that. And then I'll do that next weekend. One family I know has $1.7 million of travel expense for this last month alone.
Wow.
Yeah. But they also have $6 billion. So
yeah,
it's relative.
It's relative, and the perspective is going to vary based on what your experience is. I mean, I don't mean to suggest that the incremental approach has weaknesses to it. I don't mean that at all. I actually believe it's really, really good. I just was expressing the opinion that it was just amazing that you can have these unexpected things happen. And I underline the word unexpected, because the leaps that I've had anyway, I'm not sure about you, but the leaps I had have happened when I least expected them, when they weren't even on the radar.
Yes, and that's what we've always talked about, because once you bring it into reality, you do it there, and then you let go of it, it shows up.
Right.
That's what it seems like unexpected. You've already and I get it. It's not really unexpected. You've worked to expect it, and it's going to come along. You've just taken your attention off of it, and then it gets filled quickly because you're not pushing it away with too much attention.
The most recent example of it comes from my recent divorce. And in that situation, as listeners know, my wife had this gardening business that she'd run for years. I actually ran it for the last few years of our marriage. And my intention was essentially to make sure that she continued and was able to maintain her income on it. Because I just have this very strong belief that no matter what happens in my life, even if it's something I don't like, I always want to leave people better off than when I encountered them in the first place. And for me, that was a way to do that with my ex-wife. To my surprise and actually to my shock, well, two things happened. First, during the negotiation process for the divorce, she was adamant that that business belonged completely to her. Why should she have to give any of it up to me? And so I said, oh, well, fine. I'm okay with it. Just, I'll give you the whole 100%. No big deal. A month after the divorce, she announced she's going to close the business. I said, what? Wait a minute. What are you talking about?
Wow.
And so that led me to buy her out. But my point there is that was so completely unexpected. I didn't expect her to say, I'm going to close the business. But by her doing that and maybe giving her a buyout offer, that basically solved an income problem for me that I was still trying to figure out.
Right.
Totally unexpectedly.
And I love that, because it also, the way you handled it, and yes, okay, sure, you just sort of gave it up, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't speculate what happened with her, but inside of her is like, I can't run this. I can't figure this out without Walt.
The reason I can tell you what the reason was. The reason was that she had developed her own negative associations with the business, such that if a phone call came in, she was already so traumatized she couldn't even answer the phone because she was afraid of some sort of issue.
That's clearly not taught at Harvard Business School. Is the method.
Not really, no.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
It might be taught at the Harvard Department of Psychology, but no.
I was going to say, I think that's like nine buildings over, but you're right. With Atomic Habits, and I by no means, just like you're saying, I'm not trying to squash the idea of think gigantically either. Think big, go big. It's just there when you do it with. What gets lost, and Sam made a really good point. The secret is a very remedial introduction thing to the law of attraction. It's great for that, but it's so simplified that a lot of people get frustrated with it because it doesn't get into of how to do it really. So if you be positive, be thankful, and you want it, and it's going to just show up. It disappoints a lot of people because there's a more complex method of doing that. It does mean that, but there's more to it. So the deeper run when you start you start realizing, like with any of these methods, but thinking big, having great ideas, and not getting pigeonholed on the same thing over and over again. That's really necessary for this process. So I'm a big, dream big, think big, grow big. All that stuff is fantastic. But getting stuck just on that is something that, there's several people I'll see on, I don't usually follow many of these people, but some of the Instagram people, they're just trying to get followers, and they're just making it. I just was sitting home and I envisioned this and it appeared, and and I hope that was true for him, but I'm going, okay, I'm a little suspicious of that claim.
Especially these days, that's surprising.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I found funny is one time I came out from a grocery store, and there's this guy leaning up against my car with somebody taking a picture of it. And I said, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "No, I'm on Instagram." And I said, "Okay."
What?
I said, "Well," he said, "Well, he said, he's laughing. He goes, I want to tell everybody this is my car."
I had a feeling that's where that was going.
Yeah.
How did you feel
Okay.
about that?
Yeah, I was like, I don't care. That's fine.
I love that.
So
you get that side of it. That's pretty unusual, I have to say.
yeah. Well, I didn't know what he was doing. I guess he's telling everybody his program works so well. He manifested this card.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Something else I was thinking about for a moment. I'm trying to recall it, but it's kind of like a tangent to what we were talking about here. And it does have to do with belief system. Oh, I know what it was. It has to do with how to a technique that people suggest for helping yourself get past resistance points and blocks and so forth while you're working other methods to do that, which sounds kind of strange, but what it all adds up to is this. They suggest when you're doing your methods, whatever they might be, in order to help yourself get past resistance points, always add in the words "or better." So in other words, you're trying to attract $1 million, $1 million or better. You're trying to attract a better job than what I have, or even better than what I can imagine. Always one step beyond that. I'm kind of curious. I'm just curious what your take is on that.
My take of it is it's I see nothing wrong with it. I think it's it's positive. It's you're not limiting yourself to any one thing. Mike Dooley does a really good. I'm a big fan of Mike Dooley. I know you are too, Walt. He makes a point like you can't attract everything you want, because like he gives the example, if you want to. You see, you're a kid and you see somebody else's bike and you go, I want to track that. I want that bike. Well, that bike belongs to somebody else, so you can't have that bike. You could manifest a bike like it,
sure,
but you're not going to get that bike. And a lot of people get stuck on the concept of specific things, or like I want to attract a specific person, or I want to. You don't give the law of attraction enough of a window to fulfill, or you miss the thing you're actually attracting. So when you add that caveat of or better or more, you tend to. I think more than anything else, I don't know if it helps manifest anymore, but I think it maybe helps you see it more, because a lot of times people do manifest stuff and they don't see it because they're stuck on what it looked like. Mm-hmm. Like there's a guy that I was working with. He really wanted to get on with this IT company, and he had all the credentials, and he just was very frustrated that he couldn't every time, and they wouldn't hire him after 2 or 3 rounds. But along the way, he was offered 3 other jobs from IT companies that he just kept. Well, he was just stuck on that company. Well, wow. One of the companies was a company that was really growing. I forget the name of it. And he ended up taking that job. They ended up buying the original company he wanted to get on. He almost missed that.
That would have to sit with me for a second before I finally grasped what you were saying.
Yeah. So for him to, he was just stuck on company A. And I'm like, look, you have 3 interviews for these other companies, but I want to work for company A. I said, so they're clearly not going to hire you. So let's look at the best offer over here. So he went to company B, that started just growing outrageously. 6 months later, company B buys company A, and he's technically working for the company. He did manifest, but not the way he saw what happened.
That's the key phrase right there. Not the way he saw it. That's what happens more often than not. Stuff manifests not the way we expected, not the way we're hoping, not the way we're planning. And it really it lays our plans to shame. It really does.
Well, and that is the key, because you're stuck, and that's what I have to deal with. What is the concept you're trying? The idea that I want to, I don't want to be lonely. I want to attract a partner, and keeping that open to the idea of what's going to fulfill that versus a very.
Yep, we got another freeze control. Hopefully his phone will reset in just a moment.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully, yes. Well, it has every time. I mean, it's not like we've lost
twice.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Last week it did not happen at all, by the way. This week is twice. So
okay.
So, but I forget what was that. But this concept of having to have it a certain way, you missed the point. And the idea that you could, if you want a house on the beach, and a specific beach of it, but you're just stuck on this one house, and it just can't sell. You can't get it. You can't buy it. The person's not selling it. But yet there's 5 other houses down the road that are right there. We tend to overlook what the law of attraction brings us a lot of times. So getting stuck on one outcome is really difficult. So one of the things I talk about is, what is the essence of what you're attracting? What is the essence of what you're looking for? Not the specifics, because the law of attraction is going to bring something, because there's a lot of factors at play. There's a house on Anna Maria that it sits right by the bench. It's this little yellow house, and this guy that owns it has owned it for 20 years. And he has zero intention of selling. I mean, trust me, he zero intention. And because every year I went to him, I told him about my bench and the story. And I said, at any time, if you ever get an offer, give me the opportunity to match the offer, whatever it is. And he said, I will. And so I don't know if I'll ever get that house or not, but no matter how much I want that house, it's not for sale. The guy doesn't care how much money it's going to get. He loves that house. So until it's for sale, I can't have it. Maybe one day I get it. But right now, I have a house on the island. I just don't have that house on the island.
Yeah. You mentioned the movie The Secret, and there's actually a scene in that movie that I don't think the producers intentionally sent this message, but it comes through anyway, because it's the story of a man who's talking about how he showed his young son vision boards and how vision boards work. And in the course of doing so, he realizes that a house on the vision board is the one that they're now living in. And he hadn't made the connection that they'd actually gotten the actual house he had put onto the vision board.
Wow.
And he's blown away by that. Like he says, now I finally understand how the law of attraction works. But it's very easy to imagine how somebody watching that could say to themselves, oh, well, then what the law of attraction can do is give me the exact house that I'm looking for. Which is, I'm pretty sure that's not what they were trying to imply at all. They were just trying to give you this really cool story.
Yeah.
Take away from people.
Yeah, sometimes it's exactly what you want, but sometimes it isn't. I have a client that a few years ago got divorced from his wife, and he did not want the divorce at all. He was heartbroken, and he said, I'm going to attract her back in my life.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's see how that works out. And the outcome of that was pretty good to be pretty obvious. They were not a good match. And in the process of, he was doing a lot of stuff, a lot of self-help stuff. He was attending lectures. He's law of attraction guy. He's also neuroscience guy. So he was really immersing himself in the concept, and with the intention of attracting his ex-wife back to his life. And along the way, he kept running into this one lady at all these conferences, and they became really close friends. And so one night we're all having dinner, and he's like, yeah, I've been trying to attract my wife, and it just hasn't worked. And I see this lady looking at him like she's obviously in love with him. I mean, it's just, he doesn't. I go, I think it's worked. I just don't think you understand it's worked.
Nice phrase.
Yeah.
Nice phrase.
Nice.
And she got a huge smile and actually just blushed a lot. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, bro, you got to figure this out. You got to work with me here. So, but they're married and they're happy.
Oh, they
They're
are.
really happy.
Oh,
But
love that.
he was looking. He wasn't understanding. He attracted exactly what this lady that he's married to is just really sharp. They have a great sense of humor. She's super organized. He's sort of like me, train wreck, but that energy goes together well.
Yeah.
I need organized because I'm like, woo, and he does too. So everything they have in their life is matching, and they just, it's just working out so well. But he did manifest the partner that he wanted. He thought it was her. He thought it was his ex-wife, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it was an or better or more.
Yeah, or better. That matches your or better.
Right.
So,
yeah. I'm also aware too that anybody who's ever explored the social media groups, particularly the Facebook groups, where there are lots of conversations about relationships, inevitably you go look at those messages, and within a day or two, you're going to see a message from somebody saying they want to manifest an ex back. Usually, it's a young woman wanting to manifest a young boyfriend back. And they're always, here are the people suggesting how to do it, and other people saying, no, don't bother. It's a bad idea. And then they're getting kicked out of the group for being negative. And it's the same thing, the same routine that plays out over and over and over again. But there are also a number of cases where they succeed. They actually get the ex back. And then there's a post that follows up that says, wow, that was a mistake. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen that one too. I can't say I've seen one that said, I got the ex back and it worked out. There probably is one out there. I just haven't seen it yet. But I find it fascinating that we have so many of these examples. And I think it's kind of a way of describing how, we do kind of have this tendency to want something back because we've idealized it. We figured, that was the best it could ever be. And if I could just have it again, it would be great. And I get the impression that people who succeed in manifesting it, when they succeed, what they're really doing is they're giving themselves an education. They're giving themselves the information that they didn't have before, which tells them, I probably didn't really set myself up well with that. I probably set myself up to fail in a sense.
And that I've never seen the ex coming back. Great. I've never seen that. I've seen, like you said, it comes back and then like, okay, wow, what are we thinking? And because you get right back to where it is. But you a lot of times especially when you break up with somebody or intimate relationship ends, we tend to, use a euphoric recall on the good things, and we forget the bad things. We get where it wasn't matching.
Right. And
then if you do get back together, there's another honeymoon period, and then it's a really quick, like, okay, wow, here we are again. And so that's something that's really important to realize is we will attract, and it isn't impossible to get them back, but regardless, the idea is the essence of what we're trying to attract back is a relationship. My dating pool is a real weird dating pool for me right now. I have a lot of 25-year-old pregnant women or with kids that want me to be sugar daddy, or I have a lot of 70-year-old women that are like, hey, come on over here. I have a really extreme dating, like it's like, wow, I keep running into that, and I have a very close person that I'm in a relationship with, so it's not I'm not looking, but my point is, along the way you always think you want something, like I explained to this one young lady one time. She was really nice, Jim, and she was trying to, we could you could help me out, and I got my son. I think basically just saying you could be my sugar daddy in a roundabout way.
Right.
I said that would be such an imbalance in a relationship. Don't lower your standards to just give up just because somebody could financially take care of you. I gave her a nice lesson about, and she started crying. She goes, but I'm so scared for my future. And I said, I understand that, but finding some dude who's my age, old enough to be your dad, maybe your grandfather, think, but no, it's dad. And I mean that's not gonna help you. That's not going to help you in the long run. You're going to, but she was really sweet, but I sort of felt sorry for her because she was operating out of fear insecurity. She was operating out of fear and security. She did not really understand what she was trying to attract. There's security, and there's also a companionship that she was willing to give up the companionship part.
So taking this back to the original topic, atomic habits, incremental change and so forth, how do we apply that with relationships? Is incrementalism actually an appropriate method to use when trying to find a primary relationship?
I'm sure I could come up with a way of doing that. It's sort of a, to me, if you know what you're looking for, you incrementally look for it. A lot of people. One of my clients is he's desperate for a relationship. So every woman he meets, he's magically in love with her, and she's a soulmate. It's like every time, and they have this very torrid, hot love affair in the beginning, and then within 3 weeks they break up.
Right.
So the idea, and then he's devastated for a month or two, and he really believes he's going to find that person that he immediately connects with, and she's going to solve all of his abandonment issues in this one time. And there's zero way to do that. So what we're working on, I'm sort of using the incremental thing. I said, why don't you meet and have a plan of slowly building. The fast burn has not worked for you. Do a slow burn, build a connection, know everything about her, let her know everything about you. Really go slow and see if you can't develop that, incrementally approach the relationship. Don't get physically intimate, the first night, just slow this process down and see if we can't get to a place where because what he's been feeling is lust, mistaking it for love, and then being disappointed and abandoned again. Why don't you develop a love, and then there's a shot. So we're working on that. So you can do that when you're out meeting and going out and trying to find people, going slow in the process and learn about them. What do they really like? And that's something that's an incremental approach.
Very incremental. Yeah, and I love the example because I think it illustrates perfectly how to use the whole incremental ideal in a relationship building or a relationship acquiring situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about with health? Can you create an incremental approach on a health situation?
Absolutely. 90 and stop me on a rant. So you hit one of my topics.
I don't like to stop you on a rant. Your rants are great rants. Why would I stop that? Sam, am I right or am I right? Come on.
Rant away.
Yeah. 90% of our health issues are poor lifestyle. It's not, it's eating terribly, it's not exercising, it's poor mental health, it's a lot of things. So the ultimate solution to health is incremental improvements. When I start with someone and we're focusing on health or weight or whatever, one of the first things I do is, if they're drinking sodas, let's substitute one soda a day for water, and then maybe eventually only drink water. And then you incrementally add these healthier things. If you're walking, if y'all look at their phone and their step counter, you only walked 500 steps yesterday. Let's walk 600 steps today. Incrementally increase that. And they then start going, and then it drastically moves up. And that's when you can see huge leaps forward, because when the body gets healthy, the body has the ability to heal itself. It can only heal itself from a healthy point. It has all these factors in it. There's nothing a pharmacy can make that your body can't produce. It's just when the system is shut down, it isn't actively, immune system is not responding correctly. When you're in fight or flight mechanism with stress and anxiety, your immune system isn't working well. When you're overweight, your liver gets covered in fat and it doesn't function properly to filter out the poisons. Your kidneys aren't functioning well. Your body is when you eat a bunch of sugar, your pancreas is working full time to produce massive amounts of insulin to disperse the sugar to save the body. When you drink too much, the liver is panicking to get the alcohol out of there. So incremental changes in health is really the ultimate way to change your health. Again, Western medicine tends to overlook nutrition and these factors that I'm talking about. But it is in Eastern medicine. That's the point: reducing stress, increasing movement, eating healthy, and it doesn't have to. You don't have to eat tofu and kale, but which literally would kill me probably. But I eat lean meat. I eat caught salmon. I eat grass-fed lean meat. I eat organic chicken. I eat eggs, a lot of eggs. That's very healthy eating. I eat stuff that is literally, if my theory is if the earth provided us, then we're going to eat it. It's here. We're going to eat it. It's intended to. But I try not to eat. I'm not super obsessive, but processed foods kill us. So incremental changes they lead to drastic improvements in health. I've seen people lose 300 pounds incrementally. I've seen just amazing health improvements. And this is one that, I'll give a disclaimer. This is my opinion. So Walt doesn't get sued or anything, but this is.
Do we have to put out the medical disclaimer at this point? I mean, is that something we often have to do that? So I'm asking. That's all.
Please state that. I mean, this is Joel's opinion, what I've observed. This is not medical. Please consult your doctor, seriously. But type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle problem, not a real condition. You develop type 2 diabetes by having a poor lifestyle habit. That's what I've observed. It's reversible, it's fixable, and it requires a lifestyle change. Again, that is what I've seen in my practice. That is what I've worked with, but that is not a medical opinion. That was something you need to talk to your doctor about, and never quit taking medication, by the way.
And by the way, also the medical community is not there yet, but they are leaning toward the idea of adding a third classification in the diabetes realm.
Yes.
And they're tying it into, I believe, to Alzheimer's, and
it is
sugar.
Yes, there is some wild research taking place right now. Probably not as exciting to everyone as it is to me, but the Alzheimer's research, type 3 is what they're looking at. Gut health and Alzheimer's, there's a connection. They are developing a protein that has great promise to by increasing it's sort of a probiotic that will potentially prevent, hopefully, certainly help Alzheimer's at some point.
Yeah, boy, wouldn't that be exciting to have that shift in a major way?
Yeah. I just got that information today. That was timely.
Wow. Okay, that's as timely as it's going to get. Very cool.
Yes.
Let's carry on the incremental theme a little bit further too. Let's carry it into the realm of self-help, self-development. I mean, we've been talking about it in specific areas. We've been touching on the ones that are the most common ones. People are usually interested in money or in relationships or health, careers. Those like the broad categories. But for someone who just wants to get better at manifesting stuff in general, incrementalism works in a general way too. It doesn't have to be tied into a particular thing, does it?
I think it applies equally the same way. Again, going back to what Sam said so astutely, was the increasing your vibration incrementally is the best way to do it. And the whole concept of manifesting anything is your frequency, what you're wanting, how you're tuned into that. So incrementally increasing that, it applies across the board. I can't think of a scenario where it wouldn't be helpful.
Yeah,
so I mean, I like to be a contrarian, so I can't think of anything that I can argue with myself about here. So,
boy, we've stumped Joel. That's pretty good. I tell you.
Yeah, I actually just stumped myself with that conversation. That's really good. So that's real.
I suppose these things happen.
They do.
But yeah, for me, one thing when you're talking about relationships, kind of where I'm at right now, it's just improving the relationship with myself and loving myself more. And that's, I think, definitely an incremental thing. And it goes along with raising your vibration incrementally.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. That is a great point. There's a whole science of, back to the relationship thing, loving yourself. You're not lovable till you can love yourself. Until you're loving yourself, you're not going to attract somebody. You might find a narcissist or something. You might find somebody who's not healthy, who will be attracted to your unhealthiness. By loving yourself, doing your self-help. Yes. So it applies to that angle really well. I mean, more than anything, more the self-help, anything that requires change. And I was hoping to go an entire show without using the term neuroplasticity, but I'm gonna slow down. So,
No,
Hey,
that's
we made it 45
far too
minutes.
much.
yeah. I mean, last week I think we used that word 87 times. So
Yeah, Joel
yeah,
was counting.
yeah. So this week I was hoping not to, but again, the neuroplastic brain incrementally improves. So even within perspective change or being able to accept something, I will process myself by changing my perspective incrementally. Like, it could be something that sometimes I'll have an emotion that I don't quite understand, or why do I feel this way about it? And I can process that again. Well, I can do. Well, I'm feeling this way. Where does that come from? Oh, here's where that came from, and I can tie that. I don't know if that's making sense because I can't tell I wouldn't be able to share what I'm thinking about right now. But but
also not surprising.
Yeah. but this is that idea that incremental stuff in any area. I have classic superstar ADHD. I have like really good ADHD. I mean, the best ADHD of all time. So it is a zoo in my brain half the time. So the other day, here's an incremental thing that I know I needed to do. I had my shower head, one of those shower massage things that's in your shower. So my old one was leaking. So I ordered one off Amazon about a week ago. It got here, the next day. So it's set at the front door for a few days. Then it made it in the house. Then it made it upstairs. And I kept saying, and every day I'd get in there and I have to shut the shower because it was coming out. I'm like, okay. No, knowing this is at most a 6-minute job.
Right.
6-minute job. I also have a handyman that if I can't get to it, I just call him and say, go do these things. But so just all that knowledge is there, right? So finally, I realized that I had like 6 things I needed to do. And I said, okay, what is the easiest? And so I started with, I had to pay some bills. So I just sat down and started paying some bills. One of them required me to write a check, need to put an envelope, stamp it. Now incrementally, I started adding the next stuff. And so me writing that check led me to the next step, Then I said, heck, I'm going to go get the shower done. Everything took place in less than 17 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was done, but I had to start incrementally somewhere else. That happens a lot. Once I get flowing, I'm great, but I have to work my way up to that. Also, when I try to get anywhere from 10 to 15,000 steps a day on top of my workout. So that's a lot of steps. And so the way that I mentally handle it, by 10 a.m., I want to have 3,000 steps done. By noon, I want to have 4,500 steps. So I have increments in my steps. So at the end of the day, I'm not having to go on like a 4-mile hike at 7 o'clock at night. I can get there, and it's spread out over the day. I incrementally add that, and it's a much more acceptable way. When I'm, I think I've shared this before on the show. The longest, time being relative, and your perception of time being relative. Holding a plank is the slowest passing of time in history. There's no slower time. Okay. So
I believe that. Yeah.
There is no slower time. So, 15 seconds on a plank is about 4 minutes in real time. So I don't hold me to that math, but that is close. So I like to do planks. So, well, clearly I don't like to do planks, but I do planks.
Yeah. So I totally get it. I mean, I do the same thing. I feel the same way. So I'm with you.
So when I'm doing a plank, I have the stopwatch on my phone, and I do planks in my mind. I just got to get to that next 15-second mark. 15-second mark. I hold it the entire time, but I look at it every 15 seconds. I only got 15 more seconds, then only got 15. So I can do a 2-minute plank, but I have to do it 15 seconds at a time, meaning I don't stop, but I just look at it. It helps me to do it. If I just go for 2 minutes, it's like, I can't do it. So I use incremental mindset. I look at, when I get down to that last 10 seconds, only like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever. And it helps me somehow. It makes it more palatable.
I personally, I take a lot of joy from that because I don't do the kind of workouts you do. I mean, you can work, you can lift 35,000 pounds. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but you can lift massive amounts of weight. And here you are having trouble with a plank that I have the same kind of trouble with. Like, oh, well, I guess I'm not doing so badly after all.
Yeah, planks don't play. They are real. Planks are equal opportunity. They don't care. They don't care
That's
who
right.
you
That's true.
There's no way to fake a plank. You just do a plank. Yeah.
And I do exactly the same things you do. I've got my timer on my phone going whenever I'm doing it. Yeah.
It helps. But when my boys were younger, there's nothing more annoying than having kids in the back seat. How long are we going to be there? How long are we going to be there? How long are we going to be there? So what I would break the trip up and explain to them, and they had their tablets or whatever their things were. I'd say, okay, in 1 hour, we're going to, or 1.5 hours, however long it's going to be, we're going to stop here. And we're going to stop at this place. So you look at your clock and watch. So you don't need to ask me. And then in 1 hour, we'd stop. And sometimes I would say 1 hour and 30 minutes, and then I stopped 5 minutes early. So they were always pleased with that. And they never ask how long it's going to take because I've always given the next segment of the trip how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
And they like that because they weren't, kids' brains are how long is it going to be? How long is it going to be? They don't operate time-wise the same we do. But when you show them and they can look, then they can be relaxed until it's time to get to the next checkpoint.
Except when we do planks, then we have brains that work exactly.
We actually, I have a theory that I've actually thought about. So my son Justin, or even the neighbor kid, they can sit on the plank for 5 minutes and not move.
Yeah.
So kids, it's reversed for kids because they can do planks forever. They don't care.
Right.
They'll just, I don't know the physics behind that, but they'll just plank forever. It's like, okay, you weigh 30 pounds or something. No wonder it doesn't hurt. It's just my right thigh weighs that much.
Oh, I love that. That is so funny. In the few minutes that we have left, there's one of the concepts I want to bring here that I think is tying in pretty nicely with what we're talking about, and it's fairly important. It's the idea that when we are trying to make these changes and we run into resistances, we're running into mental resistances. I mean, even with the plank, that it's a mental resistance that's going on there.
Absolutely.
It feels like it's a physical one. I mean, my shoulders are shaking, my arms are shaking, all that kind of stuff, but it's a mental resistance.
Yes.
And so once again, the incrementalism becomes a big piece of it. Now, I want to tie in again to Abraham Hicks, because Abraham Hicks actually has a process. I never really thought about it this way, but it actually is an incremental process. They call it, well, they originally called it segment intending. Now they call it pre-paving. But it's basically a method for, kind of mapping out the way you want the next 15 minutes to go, or 20 or 2 hours or 5 hours of the day, or just mapping out how you want it to go. Well, that's incrementalism. That's an incremental approach.
Yeah. A lot of this stuff is almost, a lot of their techniques are all some form of incrementalism. There's the emotional guidance scale is the next emotion up. The segment intending, I still call it segment intending, is that's the next whatever period of time, whatever you're applying, it is trying to keep it focused on the now and then the next step. It's because the power of now. The whole concept is incrementally get right now at this moment, no matter how bad your life is, but at this moment, things are okay right now. And if we can stay in this increment of time until the next increment of time, we're fine. And that next increment of time, you'll be the same thing. So it's breaking it down is all across the board. One of the things I really like about how the military trains people is the military trains people the same way with the same instruction manual. It's hands-on. It is a process. There's faster ways to do it, but they insist on this exact process, and it's a very effective way of training. And everything is broken down into incremental steps. Everything, and they're very good at training. So no matter where these people go all over the world, let's say you had your basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and you end up in a war in the Middle East, and you're among people from other, training places, and every procedure is exactly the same. You use the same verbiage. There's rocket launcher. They have the same, back blast area clear. They have it. They all say the same thing every time, and that way they're very efficient. It's been proven as the best way to learn. Incremental learning is the best way to learn.
Yeah, and the segmenting of it is the way to break it down into those pieces so that we can absorb it. And I love that part in particular. One other thing I want to tie in before we run out of time here, again, another Abraham Hicks concept that kind of tangents off of this, is that whenever we're trying to make these steps forward and we end up, the example I'm thinking of that they give is one where somebody falls in love. They make the point that when you're in love, when you've gotten into that love state, even if you're not going to stay there real long, you're at a real high energy state. And it's a great time to do intending. It's a great time to kind of leverage that energy and put it to work, because if you want to kind of like increase the increments that, how far you can go, that's the time to do it when you're high vibrational.
Absolutely. And that's it's sort of circling back to where you when you incrementally are changing and your vibration is higher, for being in love or making whatever the catalyst is, the ability to increase the increments, or the quantum leap we mentioned earlier, is much more likely to happen. You are in it's funny because several years ago, as things were getting better, as I'd started my, back when I went into private practice, and, the money was coming in nicely and rolling in, but, in the beginning, the cash flow is sort of a thing then. And, so I always found it amazing. It would be like, okay, no payments came in today. So, oh boy, no payments came. I mean, it's good. I'm fine. I remind myself everything's fine. And then the next day, like one little payment will come in. Then all of a sudden, here's a big payment. It's like, wow. And one day, like, all the payments came in. There was no reason they should have all come in the same day, but they did. So it tends to sort of grow on itself. Like good days, like you feel good starting the morning, your attitude's good, the day tends to be better. If you start, that's the most basic 101 sort of law of attraction. But the high vibration that you're at when you're in love, or you whatever that thing that takes your high vibration up, that's the time to all that stuff. You keep adding. That's your strongest state, and that helps the most. That's when you get the most done.
That's really powerful stuff. Hey, Sam, a couple things. First of all, thanks for jumping in, because you jumped in a few times, so that's a good thing.
Oh yeah, happy to do so.
But as you've been listening to Joel today, what's the thing that jumps out to you the most? What's the one that for you resonated the most?
Well, I think definitely a lot of this has been the incremental thing. I think when you're doing anything incrementally, it's easier for your brain and body to digest and everything. But also, I liked how you said focusing on the essence of something instead of specifics, because Abraham says go general, and I think essence is a great way of reframing that, because then you can really just kind of focus on the vibration and energy of whatever it is you're seeking. So I like that. That came up a few times too.
Good, thank you. I like that word better because it helps me visually see it. What am I seeking? I want financial security. I don't care where it comes from. The essence of it is financial security. I'm not stuck on one outcome.
I actually wrote down think about the essence of, and then this, that to something to work on.
Well, that's good. And one of the other things, are you familiar, either of you, with Wim Hof?
I know the name.
Wim Hof is this guy that he sort of this, I don't know exactly where he's from, but he's this he does a breathing technique, and it's a very effective breathing technique, and he has an app. I highly recommend it. I won't get into all the benefits of it, but one of the things, you breathe, you breathe for about 30 breaths, really deep. I mean, very forceful in and out for 30 breaths. Then you hold your breath. You hold it as long as you can after you let that last breath out. So the first time I did that, I did the 30, that in and out. So then I held it. I could only hold my breath for about 22 seconds. And I mean, I don't know if that's good or bad, but that was the first time I did it. Sure. And you do 3 or 4 rounds. So the second round I did it, I was able to hold my breath for about 1 minute and 5 seconds.
Wow.
The third round, I could hold my breath for 1 minute and 30 seconds. When I do it now, I can go 1 minute and 45, sometimes 2 minutes.
Wow.
And,
Nice.
but that happened literally incremental. There's another thing that in Atomic Habits, the guy's talking about cats and the way they learn incrementally. So they put food in a maze for a cat, and they kept putting the cats in the same maze over and over. The first time the cat ran the maze and found the food, it took 30 something seconds. Second time, it took 24 seconds. And then he names the increments, and it keeps going down until the cat is consistently doing it in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's an incremental change that got there. There's probably 20 times or 30 times before he gets down to the 5 second run, and then it's there. So he incrementally improved his time each time, and that's sort of that was what I was. I use that a lot trying to do it. That's why I like Atomic Habits is not a law of attraction book, as I told you before, but you can use those methods to take advantage and use the law of attraction on your behalf. That's the tie-in that I do. I don't know if James Clear would approve of our use of that book. I'm sure he's very happy that we're talking about it, but it's a great book standalone.
Yeah.
But it's a really good book as a tool that I use to help people learn the law of attraction and how to use it to your advantage.
I think that's fine. In fact, I would tend to look at something like that is the law of attraction is involved in and affects everything that happens in life. So why not the James Clear? Anything else really for that matter.
Sure.
Yeah. So good stuff. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.